This is the Happy House Hunters, and this is our free meetup. We meet the first Tuesday of every month, and we're starting to build a little bit of a team now. We have Kyle, of course, and Kyle is our in-house realtor, so to speak, and he gets us in on our boots on the ground, all of our mastermind stuff. He's very active in that. We just did a boots on the ground last night, and then we met up with Adam in the short north, and we had a great time. And but on this free meetup, we're just now starting to put together a team, and Christy is my co-host. So there's Christy. So say hi to Christy. And Christy, we've got some attendees. This is an actual webinar instead of a meetup, and so they're communicating with us through the chat. And so I think, Adam, I think you and Christy can both see the chat. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, yep. Perfect. Very good. So folks are going to be communicating through the chat. I'm going to present tonight. And so I'm going to have Christy kind of keep an eye on the chat, and Adam can help out with the chat. Adam is actually my co-host on my short-term rentals, which is the ins and outs of a B&B, guest house, Airbnb, and VRBO, which is another group that meets on a different night. So if anybody's interested in that, you can connect with me, and we can get you all of those dates. Now, at any time, you can go to kathybinner.com, just my name. You see it right here on the screen, Kathy with a K, Binner, BINNER.com. And you can scroll down the homepage and you can find all of our free meetups on there. If you click through on any of the free meetups, it'll give you the dates, the times, the Zoom code. It'll also, if you scroll on down, there is a calendar on that homepage, and you can even see all of the meetups on one calendar, and you can see which ones you want to tap into. So we are going to actually talk about filling tonight. The Happy House Hunters has a course that we take all of our members through actually twice a year. We go January through June, and then we go again July through December. And we're talking about the 6 F's of real estate. So it's finding the real estate. Of course, that's our first thing we have to do is find it. Then we have to fund it. So look at Adam. He's our in-house mortgage guy. So he can help you fund it. Well, and Christy can help you find it. Yeah. So Christy can help you find it, and Adam can help you fund it. And then, of course, we have to fix it. And another member of our team is Derek Peel. He is not on with us tonight, and he is the fix-it guy. He is an actual contractor, and so he can direct you and help you when it's time to fix it. And so after that, you have to decide. Once you find it and fund it and get it fixed, then are you going to flip it or are you going to fill it? And so for those that want to flip, and move those properties on and put some cash in your pocket, I get that. And tonight we're talking to those folks that want to fill it, that want to actually buy and hold and keep those properties to fill. And so that's what we're talking about tonight. And then our last F is freedom. How many of those units do you either have to flip or do you have to fill to have freedom? So you can quit that day job and just do real estate. Everything about real estate. I love real estate. So I made some notes, and I'm just going to kind of go through, and please put your questions in there as I go through. And Adam and Christy, please feel free to ask questions as well. Just a brief background on me. I do have about 30 rental doors right now, a combination of residential and commercial. And the way I got started, and I'll just give a real brief background scenario. I got started in, I was 40 years old before I got started. And I knew that I needed to build some sort of a retirement, and I wasn't going to have enough time to save up the kind of cash that I felt I would need to actually leave my day job to retire. And so I decided that I needed to start investing in real estate. So the way I started was I got into the cosmetology industry, and my aha moment was when I realized that, and first I got to back up and say this, I got into cosmetology because I thought, well, I'm just going to work a couple evenings a week, and that's going to be some money I'm going to put back for retirement. That was my plan, was to just work more hours. And once I got there, my aha moment was when I realized that the owners of these salons, and in Ohio, they're rather common. They're called booth rent salons or independent contractor salons. And what I realized is that the owners were renting out stations or booths inside the salon building, and they were collecting rent from all these different stylists. Now, the problem with that I saw was that most of them, or many of them, maybe not most, but many of them were simply renting something in a strip center, shopping center type area. And at the end of 30 years, they were going to have a shoebox full of rent receipts. And I thought, well, I needed to build a retirement. So if I'm going to get into this industry, how can I actually make it work for me? And I thought, what if I bought my own commercial building and then rented out stations or booths inside my commercial building? And at the end of 30 years, my staff will have bought me a building instead of me just having a shoebox full of rent receipts from the local shopping center. So that's what I did, is I bought my first commercial building and I rented out the booth space in the building. Now, before everybody runs out there and decides you're going to open a salon, there's a lot more to it than that. This is the quick version. So talk to me before you do that, because it's a little bit of a different type business when you have all those independent contractors all working under one roof. So talk to me first. I can give you some help there if that's what you really want to do. But that's how I got started. And then I leveraged my first building and bought my second, my third, my fourth, and finally my fifth. So I retired with 5 commercial buildings. Now, since then, what I have done is I took also some of my cash that I was earning at the time in the salon industry, and I started investing in some single families as well as some of those commercials. And then once I retired, now follow it here, don't lose track of what I'm saying here. I gave away the salons. I didn't give away the buildings. I gave away the business that was inside the building. I simply chose a gal or guy that was in the salon that had some leadership traits and qualities. And I pulled them aside and I said, would you like to be an owner? And when they said yes, I said, then we're going to let you own the salon and I'm going to truly step out and just become the landlord. So I still own the buildings. I just gave away the salon business. When I say I gave away the salons, people are like, you gave away those buildings? No. I just gave away the business that was inside the buildings. And so now those folks are salon owners and now they're just renting a building from me. Now, at some point, I would love to see them move on and buy their own building. And do the same thing that I did. I wish that for everyone, because there's certainly enough business to go around. So I run my rentals as much hands off as possible so that I don't get down in the weeds with all of the drama with, people can't pay their rent or this, that, or the other. I just don't get involved at that level. I kind of try to rise above all that so that I don't have all of that emotion, which is one of the main reasons that people do not want to be landlords. They're like, oh, I don't want to get called in the middle of the night and I don't want to have to fight with my tenants and then people trash your house. And so my whole plan is to just kind of rise above all that and to just run it like you would be working a job for someone else. And the analogy that I like to use before I actually get into the points that I want to talk about tonight is if you're working a job for someone else and your boss told you, hey, Joe over here didn't pay his rent. I need you to go put this piece of paper on his door. You would go, okay, because you're not emotionally connected to Joe or the piece of paper. You're just getting paid to do a job. So you just go, okay, I'll go stick it on his door. And if Joe comes out and says, hey, what are you doing? Say, hey, my boss just told me to put this on your door. You have to call him. I don't know anything about it. I'm just doing my job, putting the note on the door. When you can get to that point with your own rentals, where it's just your business, it's what you do, then, and get the emotional connection out of it. Now, I'm not saying to, not be nice to your tenants. I'm always very nice to my tenants. Oh, my screen went away for a minute. Sorry about that. I'm always very nice to my tenants, but I don't want to get involved in all their day-to-day fighting within themselves and their jobs and their money and that their car won't run or whatever else is going on in their world. Now, what I do is I have a list of resources that I can help them with. Okay, that's huge. And that's probably one of the biggest takeaways that I want you to take away from this conversation tonight. You don't have to be mean, and you can be very kind, and you can help your tenants, but you can help them by giving them the resources that they can then use to get help. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about is being nice, being kind, being helpful, doing all those things, but doing your job. Because when you sign a lease, especially if you own the property or you're a single member LLC, or for whatever reason you're on the line, your name is signing that lease, you're obligated to fulfill your end of the lease. You can't let one tenant not pay and another one make them pay, you know, because now you're being discriminatory, and you can't discriminate. So the best thing that for you to do legally is just follow your lease. And no matter what your tenant asks you, you're just going to repeat that section of the lease. Here's what I can do for you. And if they need more help than that, give them some resources, give them some referrals to those kinds of services. Now, where I'm headed as well is I am also creating some of those resources. I am actually putting together some scholarships and some nonprofit type organization behind the scenes where I can then also help in some of those areas. So there's all kinds of things you can do. So that's the biggest takeaway is to try to keep those emotions out of running your business. So that's my background. And so now we're going to get started on, if you're going to fill a property, the first thing, now it's all fixed. You found it, you fixed it, you decided not to flip it. So now you're going to fill it. And so the first thing you have to do is make sure you go in and take a really great set of pictures. Now, our cell phones are pretty decent, and you can get professional pictures done if you'd like, but make sure that you take some really good pictures. I can't tell you the number of times that I've had a contractor finish up the job, and I'm already marketing because I want to get it filled as quickly as possible. And all of a sudden, I don't get back down to the unit to get the pictures. I've even called the contractor a couple of times, and I'm like, can you take some pictures of that great fireplace you just finished? Because I don't have a great picture of that. Because what's going to happen, you're going to create this library of pictures for each one of your units. That's going to be your go-to library, your go-to album or folder that you're going to go back to every time that unit comes empty. Okay, so make sure that you get a great set. And every time you do something new in that unit and it looks amazing, get some great pictures of that. The second thing I like to do is I like to list it on Craigslist. Now, not everybody's a Craigslist fan. The reason that I am a Craigslist fan is because Craigslist does some ready-made things for you. Whether or not you want to entertain all of the applicants you get off of Craigslist is totally up to you. But Craigslist does a beautiful job of laying out your listing. They have a place for your pictures. They have a place for your open house. They have a map. If you put the location on there, a map comes. I mean, everything is already kind of pre-built. It's kind of its own little sales page, its own little sales funnel for your unit that you're getting ready to advertise. Now, once you get that all populated and get everything into Craigslist, as soon as you hit publish, they will send you a link in your email, and that's the link that you're going to advertise. So now you can take that listing and you can go over to some Facebook groups. You can, wherever you want to put that link. And if you put it on social media, it automatically populates the pictures and the open house and everything that you've put into the Craigslist ad. It automatically populates that out for you. And so that's why Craigslist is my go-to when I have a unit that I want to advertise, because once I put it there, then I can use that link wherever else I want to put it. Now, don't forget to also put a sign out front. I would say more than 50% of the time, not only on my commercial buildings, but also in my residential, my next best renter comes from just having a sign out front. And I don't know about you, but for any of us that have ever looked for a place, what's the first thing we do? We drive around to see what kind of neighborhood we might like to live in. And sure enough, there's a sign. And what are we going to do? We're going to call. We're going to say, oh, there's one. That one looks nice. Let's call on that one. So don't underestimate having a sign in the yard. Okay. Now, another thing that I do, and I started off by saying, you've found the property and you've funded it and fixed it, and now you're ready to fill it. This may be one that a tenant is moving out of, and you've had to go back in and kind of, dress it up a little bit, repaint, clean, whatever. And so now it's ready again. So I always put right in my lease, when I'm doing a lease with a tenant, that if they give me a notice that they're leaving, that I have it written right in my lease that I am allowed to do a walkthrough as soon as I get their notice to kind of see what needs to be done. Does it need new carpet? Does it need repainted? Do all the appliances work okay? Is there any, dents in the refrigerator door? That kind of stuff. I take my handyman with me and we do a walkthrough. And then I have where I can do an open house before they actually move out. And I will pick a Saturday in the middle of the month that they're moving. Now, of course, I tell the people that are coming to the open house, this couple's moving, so there's going to be some boxes, and they're like, oh, we get it. But I oftentimes will have the unit rented before the previous tenant ever moves out. My turnaround time between tenants is about 2 days, just long enough for my handyman to get in there if he needs to clean anything or paint anything or change out anything, fix a light that's broken or fix a toilet that won't stop running or whatever happens to be on that walkthrough list. And then even then I will let the new tenants move in, and even if there's something we didn't quite get done, I'll let them know that that's coming. That back door screen that was torn, we've dropped it off and it's getting replaced, and we'll bring it back in the next couple of days and get it reinstalled. So anyway, there's usually only about a 2-day turn between my units, and it keeps the cash flow coming. Okay. So let's go back to the pics. You've got your pictures, you've got your Craigslist ad. Now, what phone number are you going to put on that ad? Because the way things are right now, you could get 100 calls in a couple of days. And if you're still working a full-time job, and you've only got maybe one rental and you're still working, you don't have your freedom number yet, you can't monitor all those phone calls. So the first thing that I did, and on my phone, I don't know if I can show you or not, but I have on my phone here at the bottom, right over there in this corner, it's called One Talk. And I have Verizon, and it's a whole separate app, and it's a whole separate phone number, but it's on my main cell phone. So with my cell phone rings, I can answer it. If that little app One Talk rings, I can answer it, and it's a whole separate line. And so does everybody know what a vacation message is on your cell phone? When you put your greeting on your cell phone, you can, go into what we call the back of the house, in your cell phone, and you can put in a greeting that says, if you don't answer, hi, you've reached Kathy Benner, please leave your name and number. But there's an option back there that says you can put a vacation greeting on. Now, here's why I like vacation greetings. A vacation greeting doesn't let them leave a message. You're just giving them a message. It says, hi, you've reached Kathy Benner. I'm out of the office until next Thursday, please, call this number for my assistant if you need help before I get back. And they can't leave a message. So you're not getting 50,000 messages in there while you're gone. Okay. With that said, I take this second number and I put a vacation greeting on that second number. And it just says, I bet you're calling about this unit that I have. Well, here's the details. They can't leave a message, because 9 times out of 10, when you get 100 calls, what they're saying is, now, how many bedrooms does it have? It was in the ad. Well, now, when is the open house? It was in the ad. But what happens, and you have to understand, and if you've ever looked for a house or a unit, you get it. You start making a list of all these locations that you're interested in, and you're trying to find a house. And after you don't remember which ones had 3 bedrooms and which ones had 2. And, so you call up and go, I had a star next to this one. I know I liked it. Let me call them and find out the details again. So when they call the number that I advertise, which is my second number, I simply read the Craigslist ad into the greeting. I simply say, hi, you've reached Kathy. You're calling about such and such a unit. It has 3 bedrooms. It has 2 bathrooms. The open house is on this date. I just basically read the Craigslist ad into that vacation greeting on that second number. And then guess what? I'm done. I don't have to monitor any of those phone calls. They call the number on the sign out front. They get the vacation greeting on that second phone number. You see how great that is? So now go do your thing. Go to dinner, take your trip, do whatever, go to work if you're working a day job, and your phone is not getting all these calls. Now, what you're doing now is you're directing all of them to simply come to an open house. So now 2 things. Folks want to apply early because they're all in this race to get these apartments. It wasn't always that way, but it has been recently since the pandemic. I'm not sure why housing has become so short, but I would get maybe 10 couples. Now I get like 100 when I have an
Really?
Yes, it's crazy.
And just to get an idea, what part of town where are most of your properties? I don't even know.
Canal Winchester is my hub, so everything's kind of around. So we're talking kind of the south side of Columbus on around to Groveport, around the other way to like Circleville, Asheville, Lancaster. So Canal Winchester is my hub, is the center. And yeah, it's crazy. And I don't get it quite either, but it is crazy. And so all of a sudden you get all of these calls. And so people are wanting to apply early. So the next thing that I did is I had to have an application now. So you have to have something to collect their information. And the first thing that I did is I put my application on my website. And I want to encourage everyone out there, if you only have one rental, create yourself a little website, even if it's a DBA, doing business as, and you're not an LLC or you're not incorporated or whatever, create it to make it more business. So when your tenants contact you, they feel that they're connecting with a business, not with just you personally. Okay. And so then you can start creating a staff. And so one of the first things you want to do is you want to get that application automated. And so I put mine right on my website. And so they can go right there, and it says right in my Craigslist ad that to apply early, there's the link, and it takes them right over to my application. Now I've got a couple of gals on the call, and we've had this question before, and I don't know if we ever came up with an answer, that on Craigslist, that maybe the link directly out to the application didn't work. And I think what I did is I said copy or click in case Craigslist didn't make the link clickable. And for any of you that work around computers, you know what I'm talking about, where you get a link in an email sometimes and you can't click on it. So and so you might have some people looking at your apartment that's not very technology savvy. And so I type right in the ad that says to copy and paste or click this link. So that way, if they try to click it and it doesn't click, they go, oh, she did say to copy and paste it. And so anyway, once they get over to the application, they can fill that out right online. And the way I have it set up is it comes right into my inbox. The application just pops right into my email. So no matter where I am, those applications come to me and I can start looking at them kind of early. Now, one of the things you want to do is and that also keeps them all kind of in the right order. Some states require that you look at the applications in the order that they come in, and that you, by law, have to pick the first applicant that meets all of your criteria. You can't put them all in a big pile, sort them all out and go, oh, this 100th one is the best one, so I'm going to offer it to them. You have to take them in order. Now, in Ohio, that law they're not enforcing it. I don't know exactly how the law reads, but I do that just to make sure that no one can say that I'm discriminating or that I'm jumping over them. They applied first and I didn't pick them even though they qualified. And so having that application emailed to you dates and timestamps it automatically because it comes into your email. And so that really saves a lot of work on that end. Now, when I get to the open house, let's say none of the applications qualify. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. If I get some that qualify, I'm going to go ahead and rent that unit, and I'm going to pull that open house. I'm going to cancel that open house. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and rent the unit if somebody comes in, because there's no reason to go to an open house and get another 100 applications if I've already picked someone. And so I will go ahead and rent it. But if I didn't, devil's advocate, let's say nobody qualified that sent their applications early, and now I get to the open house, I do have some paper copies of the application, because you have some folks that show up at the open house that they just don't do computers. They just don't do emails. They just, they might be an older couple. And again, who knows? But you do run into some folks that just don't use technology. They don't want to bank online. They don't want, they're old school, and they want that paper application and a pen. And so I do have some that I've printed off of my website that I do take with me to an open house. And then again, as those folks turn them in, I do number those in so that I know the order that those came in as well. Okay, so anyhow, that's the whole advertising piece of it, is your pictures, your Craigslist, your second phone line, your open house, your applications, and make sure that you get on your to-do list to have a website. So that'll just, and you can, mine is Kathy Benner Companies. We have folks that name theirs, whatever properties. You have to be careful that you can't name it property management. You can't use that phrase unless you are a licensed realtor working under a broker in order to be a property management company. You can property manage your own properties, but don't call it a property management company. Just call it Benner Properties, for example, or Hawkins Properties, or Messmer Properties. Okay. Or come up with a name like that. Okay, now the next thing we want to talk about, now you've got the stack applications. Now you've got to qualify your applicants. You have to decide early on what you want your qualifications to be. Do you want their income to be so many times the rent? Are you going to do the background checks? Are you going to check their social media? Are you going to check public record? Whatever it is you're going to do, you have to do it the same to everybody that applied for that unit. And the best thing to do is to have those qualifications, again, right in your website. Just have, this is our qualifications. That way, no one can say that you discriminated. You have to be very careful with that. So just have all of your qualifications kind of carved in stone, if you will. Now, I'm not saying you can't ever change them or you can't add something to them. But when you do, then you have to add it from then on, across the board to everyone that applies. So just make sure that you treat everybody the same. We can get down in the weeds with all kind of questions. Well, do you take somebody that's had a felony? And if they've had a felony, how old does a felony have to be? And wonder if their income is almost the amount that you need, but not quite. Would you ever make an exception? And what happens on social media? And, so, and again, do you accept pets? What about smoking? There's all those. And then, of course, the whole pet question, you get into all of those things about, well, wonder if it's, a support animal, an emotional support animal. And that's another whole webinar on all the different levels of questions that come out of that. So the point is just make sure that you have a good, solid set of requirements that you're going to require from your applicants, and then just kind of basically measure all your applicants with the same ruler. Make sure that you're just looking across the board. And when my applications start coming in early, which is why I like to have them come in early, that way I don't have like a whole pile all at once the weekend I want to rent the unit. I can start going through those, and usually at a glance I can go, okay, they don't qualify because they didn't meet my qualifications. So mine, for example, is I want them to have 3 times income from the rent. Okay. So whatever the monthly rent is, times 3 is what I want their monthly income to be. Now that monthly income, you have to be careful. That monthly income can be all their monthly income. It can be if they get child support, whatever they put on there to count, you have to count all their income. Even if they get like some Section 8 or whatever, you have to count that. That's part of their income to qualify for a place to live. So if Section 8 pays, $1,000, then you have to count that as part of their monthly. Now, whether you accept Section 8 or not, again, that's up to you and your qualifications. But if somebody applies, you do have to count that when you're looking to see if they qualify for income purposes. Just giving you a kind of a general overview there. And so anyway, make sure that you're doing everybody the same. And mine is 3 times the rent is what I want their monthly income. And it can be, let's say it's mom and dad and an adult son. And if the unit is big enough for 3 adults, then you can count the income of all 3 adults. Are you following me? It doesn't have to be just dad's income or just mom's. It can be of all 3 adults in the household. So that's the first thing. Now, I do also, I don't allow pets, but then again, you have to go back and look at all of the rules and laws when it comes to emotional support animals and when it comes to service animals. So you cannot discriminate if somebody has those. And so you have to understand those rulings. And so make yourself familiar with those. And you can look them up there. There's tons of information online about that. And then, of course, I double check all of the public records. So everything that you need to know basically is a public record. So if they filed a bankruptcy, if they have any liens, if they have any tax liens, if there's any judgments against them, all of that is going to be public record. So that's why on my application, I want 2 or 3 addresses back, because if they've moved from another county or from another state, I need to go and look at the public records in those other counties and other states. If they've recently divorced, I want to know where they lived prior, because, maybe the spouse has a felony. And if this mom, for example, has minor children, then you've got dad coming in and out of the house quite a bit. And maybe he's the one that has the felony. So you see where all of this is public record, but you have to treat everyone exactly the same. All of your applicants have to be measured by the same ruler. Okay. So anyway, and that's public record. Now, if you don't want to do all of that and you go, okay, I'm not familiar with that, I don't know, wonder if I missed something, you can simply buy a background check. You can just simply buy that. And that's the next thing I want to talk about is systems. Put your systems in place. The number one system is probably a property management system. And there are several out there that are so easy. One is called Cozy. We probably all heard of that one. One is called Buildium. There's another one called Inago. They're all property management systems. They're just a software program. And you plug in all of your addresses. You might only have 1, that's fine. You might have 20, and that's fine. Then you plug in all of your tenants, and then you basically match up, this tenant goes to that unit. And now that software program takes care of all of your monthly billing. It takes care of all of your late fees and payments if they're late on their rent. It takes care of all of the notifications. All of that is done for you. You don't have to manually do that. So with me, with 30 doors, it changed my world. And I'm using Inago, and it changed my world when I finally put everything on Inago. Because now I don't have to, I had it all over my calendar, well, did Joe pay on the 3rd, and did Cindy Lou pay, her late fees? And I was constantly, when it popped up on my calendar, then I'd have to go to my bank account and check. And then if it wasn't there, then I'd have to call the tenant, and then they'd say, oh no, I don't get paid till Friday, and it was just constant. And so now Inago just handles all of that. I don't even look at it. Inago just takes care of all of that. It's all automated. So that is huge. And within that system, not only do those systems collect the rent, they also manage all of the late fees for you. They manage all of your maintenance reports for you. And yes, you can actually upload your application there instead of having it on your website. And you can actually electronically, for all you folks that are doing things electronically with the lenders and the title companies, you can now electronically send out your application and your lease agreement for your tenants to sign electronically through these programs. They have all of that capability, and you can use as much or as little of it as you want. For the first year, I just used the rent portion of it because I wanted to get used to that. And I was still doing the other stuff basically manually. And then finally I said, I'm going to do all my maintenance there, because I can pick up a maintenance request and shoot it right on to the HVAC guy, or shoot it right onto the plumber or whatever. And so all I'm doing is answering a phone call. I don't have to go to their, I don't have to meet the plumber there and let them in or do any of that, because right in that Inago, it has the tenant giving permission to enter. When they submit their maintenance request to me, there's already a permission for my maintenance people to enter, and it has their phone number and everything on there. And when it goes out to the plumber, the whatever plumbing company I might be using, they connect with the tenant directly and schedule directly and go take care of it. And it's all, I don't have to meet anybody or do anything. All I do is receive the maintenance request and forward it on to who I want to go do the job. And so that was a godsend for me, because the other option would be to hire a actual property management company to do that. And so I'm finding that my life is pretty easy just using the software program. And so the last thing that I want to talk about, and then I'm going to turn it around and we're going to get into some questions, because we still have about 20 minutes here, is the importance of having an advisory board. And that's another reason that I would like for all of you to have a website, is because you can create a page in your website for your advisory board. Now, your advisory board is going to be the folks that you actually go to anyway for advice. If I need insurance advice, I call up my insurance agent. And if I have an attorney that has worked on some of my deals with me, doing deed transfers. And so if I have a legal question, I contact my attorney. I have a realtor, that's helped me purchase several of my properties. So if I have a real estate question, I get a hold of my realtor. So anyhow, those are the folks that are actually on my advisory board. It's the folks that I go to anyway. And I simply ask them, would you be on my advisory board? They said yes. And so I've actually created this page where I have their picture and just a little sentence or two about who they are and what they do. And what it does is it gives your business this clout that you are running your rentals like a business. You're not just mom and pop with an extra house down the street that you're renting out. You actually are running a business. And just that visual to your tenants eliminates about 90% of the drama coming your way, believe it or not, because they're not going to, if they have a big lender, and again, I'll use an analogy here. If you own a house and you're going to be late on your payment for your mortgage, do you call up your lender and go, I really can't pay until Friday. Is that okay? No, you pull out the paperwork and you go, well, I either can pay it, or if I'm late, I got to pay, $50 late fee. Okay. And you take your lumps and you don't call anybody, because you're like, who are you going to call? Where you're going to get the girl on the desk and ask her if she'll change your mortgage. And so what happens when you have a website and you have an advisory board and you have your name in the form of a business name, like Benner Properties, mine happens to be, Kathy Benner Companies. But once you do that, you're going to eliminate about 90% of those kind of calls. Because folks, you've got your mute on, Christy. Did you say something, Christy?
Oh,
there you go.
That shocks me.
Why does that shock you?
It's a great idea. It's just a great idea.
Now, for all of us that are sitting in front of our computers, we probably have our cell phones close by. And if anyone wants to, you're more than welcome to simply Google Kathy Benner Companies. Make sure you have the word companies, and you can look that up. And you can see where I have my properties listed. I have the advisory board listed there. I have my staff listed there. I have all of that. I have my application in there. It's all there. And what it does is it just changes the whole image of what you're doing by just taking that extra step. And it doesn't take, these days, it doesn't take that much to have a website. You can, mine's, believe it or not, on Vistaprint for I don't know, $19 a month or something. And they host the whole thing, and it's built on Vistaprint. Anyway, so I'm going to open it up to questions. There's 4 of us on the panel. Kyle is still incognito there. We've got Christy and Adam, and then we've got our attendees. So if anyone has a question, please put it in the chat or in the Q&A. Either one, we'll monitor those. And
I have a question actually.
Absolutely.
What do you think about what do you think about the relationship between what you're renting at and the level of problems you get with the filling process and with I mean, I guess landlording in general, but yeah, do you have any feedback on that?
Yeah, it's all relative, and again, it has a lot to do with the landlord and what their relationship is with money. So now think about that. A lot of it has to do with the landlord and what their relationship is with money. And let me add this: most landlords are nice people. And so they have a hard time when somebody says, I can't pay my rent. They feel like such a schmuck when they go, oh, great. Now what do? I've got a mortgage, but they're in a bind and I want to be nice, so, okay, I'm going to try to work with them. And so anyway, it just goes on and on and on. And then it just goes downhill from there. And that's why you're better off to distance yourself a little bit when it comes to those kinds of issues and give them some referrals to help them out. So when you're actually setting your rent, that's also another concern. A lot of landlords, they're afraid that it's going to sound like they're money hungry or that they're a bad person because they're charging so much rent. And then sometimes landlords will even get these kind of comments from their friends like, oh, well, you've got all kind of money. Look at all the properties you've got. Because they see it coming in, they don't see any of the money going out. They don't see what landlords spend on the back end to try to keep these properties nice and what it costs for property taxes and insurance and maintenance, and a furnace. And then, because the same people that will say that to a landlord, like, oh, you got plenty of money, those are the same people that don't own because they don't want that responsibility of fixing the furnace and the roof and all. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. And so what happens as a landlord is you've got this tightrope to walk where you want to look successful, but you don't want to look greedy. And so all of a sudden you really struggle with where you're going to set your price point on your properties, and you want to make them nice, but then if you keep your price point too low, you don't have the money to keep the maintenance up. Anyway, it's a double-edged sword. That's why if you create it like a business, you create your advisory board, you set your rates according to the market on what the rates are actually going for, because the big boys, they're putting the rates out there, the big companies. And again, they've got a whole board of directors that's calculating where their rates should be, and they're not shy. And so for the little investor, sometimes, we have to kind of take that same role and just stay with the market and then have the resources available if somebody needs some help.
And maybe I missed it, Kathy, but when you're trying to do market research on what a property would go for, what the rental rate should be, what resources are you using to determine that?
Well, first of all, one of the things that I like to tell a lot of my students is when you're ready to put your unit out there on the market, go out on a Saturday afternoon and pretend you're a renter and go take a look at a lot of other properties. And go out and just go to some open houses, go to some, you see something that's for rent, call them up and say, hey, I'd like to see your unit. When is your open house or whatever. And what happens is you soon realize that you've got a pretty darn nice unit. And so now you're not as shy to say, here's what I'm going to charge for rent. If more than likely you come home saying, they're getting how much for that?
Yeah,
well,
go ahead.
Well, then you have more confidence in your ability to set your rates, because once you realize what other folks are charging and getting, by the way, then you're going to have more confidence. You're going to say, when somebody goes, "Oh, that's too expensive," you're going to say, "Well, I know it isn't, because I just looked at what's out there. I know it's not too expensive." And so now you have more confidence that you're providing a good quality service at a fair price, which is what we all want at the end of the day.
So I can say, hold on, I do need to say something because I should have said this at the beginning. My NMLS ID is 980119, and I work for Motto Mortgage. I'm a mortgage loan originator, and the opinions expressed are my own and not that of Motto Mortgage. Anyways, so I see under rented properties as like kind of super common among small time landlords. So when I'm taking an application for anybody, I mean, rents is a very common discussion, and a lot of times they're really under rented, and they'll even make a comment when we're going through the application that, oh man, I really need to charge more for rent and stuff. But I think it goes back to that what you were talking about earlier about a lot of landlords are nice people, and they don't want to, they don't want to be a jerk. Yeah, so I don't know, Kyle, what do you think? Are you trying to get in on this?
Well, I just wanted to throw in some additional information and resources. You're asking, where do you determine your rents from? Of course, I always look at Craigslist and Zillow. That's a good place to start too. And Kathy was talking about where she advertises Craigslist. Maybe some people don't like that. Just so everybody here knows, the private realtor network, the MLS, the multiple listing service, also does rentals, not just sales. So you can list your rentals through the MLS with an agent if you'd like. I know some people, like Kathy said, try to shy away from the Craigslist crowd.
Right.
If you are looking for a more professional place to advertise your property, the MLS is an option. We do have some listings there. And I did want to circle around. Kathy mentioned earlier, talking about Section 8. As of October 11th, 2021, so just a month ago, let me read you an excerpt here from the MLS. The communities of Reynoldsburg, Bexley, and Columbus recently implemented legislation that potential tenants cannot be disqualified based on their source of income. More communities are expected to implement similar types of law in the coming months. So you cannot discriminate against somebody based on the source of their income. So if they are receiving Section 8, as of a month ago, it is now, you're not allowed to ask them about that. So laws are constantly changing. If you are going to be a landlord, you've got to stay on top of laws. They are dynamic and they are constantly changing and evolving.
And that's why a group like the Happy House Hunters is important, because we try to bring all of that to you as it comes available. Adam, go ahead.
So then that said, potentially any landlord could be a Section 8 landlord. Is that right?
Well,
Is that
the individual unit has to be approved to be Section 8. They've got minimum safety standards that they're looking for. But when you're now comparing, this guy to that guy, source of income, they're just going to write down their incomes, whether it's child support or Section 8 or 40-hour work week. Income is income. You cannot discriminate against.
So if you decide you want to take that applicant, you would then have to have your unit approved to be a Section 8 unit.
So
Section 8 provider.
So then my question is does that law compel the landlord to, like, if the applicant's like, hey, I want to live here, then do you have to go through the Section 8? Oh, so you can still say, well, I'm not Section 8 approved and you can't make me, right?
Correct, at this time.
Okay.
The laws could change.
Yeah.
Because there's more folks, again, through all of these closures and people losing jobs, there's more folks needing help with Section 8, and there's not enough units to go around. So that could change. It has not at this time, but it could. All right. Any other questions? Come on, some of you guys over in the attendee side, I know you probably have some. I know I probably hit on some hot buttons there.
I have another question. So
Sure.
What I use for screening tenants is TransUnion Smart Move. Now I'm a small time guy. I got one unit. I got one long term and one short term. And it's perfect for that because I meet somebody, I say, hey, you want to apply for this thing? And they say, yeah. And I get their email address. I put it in my little dashboard on the owner's dashboard for TransUnion Smart Move. It sends them an application. I can choose to either pay for it myself and then charge them a fee, or I can just have TransUnion directly bill the tenant. And that's what I usually charge that second option, or just decide that second option. And then what I get for it is a credit report, an eviction report, and a background check. And then in addition to that, TransUnion, they have this like rental scoring card, and then they'll make a recommendation. It's like, okay, well, if this is my place, I would either rent to them or I wouldn't. And it's a helpful guide. I mean, especially because I started using it, I don't know, 2 or 3 tenants ago when I was real raw and brand new. And it was really, really helpful for that. And,
Yes.
For free, I like free. Free's good. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We do have a question. It says, why do a lot of landlords have issues with renting out to Section 8? And I can answer that. Number one, it's a lot of red tape. It's a lot of red tape on both ends, on the landlord side and on the tenant side. And when I say a lot of red tape, you got to fill out the paperwork, and you got to, sometimes you got to drive it there and turn it in because there's deadlines and all of that. And then as the landlord, they have to get approved, and they have to have inspections. And then if Section 8 can't get out there right away, sometimes, you have to wait for an inspection. And then if something doesn't pass, you've got to fix it and then have it re-inspected. And so it takes some time sometimes to get all of that done. And again, what's happening now is as soon as we put a unit out there, we have 100 applicants and they want it yesterday. And so when we say, gosh, are we going to spend the next 3 weeks maybe getting it approved for Section 8, or do we want to just take one of these applicants that has cash in their hand? And remember the whole discrimination. If somebody shows up and they qualify and they've got the cash, we can't say, no, we're not going to take you. We're going to wait.
Yeah.
We're going to pick somebody we like better. And so, so you have to be very careful. But that's one of the problems with Section 8 is, for lack of a better way to describe it, is just the red tape. Now, once a unit is approved for Section 8, oftentimes that landlord will take Section 8 continuously because they're already approved, but they do have to get re-inspected every year. And if something doesn't pass the inspection, they have to then get a handy person in there or a maintenance person in there to fix whatever it is, and then have the whole re-inspection done. So I hope that answers your question.
There is a shortage on Section 8 housing. Like you said, the laws might be evolving to maybe at one point be able to compel landlords. Right now, they're not compelling landlords, but there is an incentive. There's $1,000 sign-on bonus right now if you do convert per unit, if you convert any of your units to Section 8.
Wow.
Because there's such a shortage.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I had a conversation with my attorney a while ago, and he was a real proponent of Section 8. And he's like, it's a lot different than it used to be, because I don't know, you go to some of these real estate meetups and you meet these old salty landlords and they're all angry about something. And, and a lot of them are really angry about Section 8. And it's like, why is it such a, I mean, I think that, I'm not an authority on it at all, but from what I understand, the laws used to be a lot more difficult to comply with than what they are now. But I don't know, I might be mistaken about that.
Well, again, I don't think it was necessarily the laws that were more difficult. It was the staffing of the Section 8. We found, because we tried to get one of our units approved for Section 8 because we had a veteran that had a voucher. And so we thought, okay, we're going to really try to help this guy out. And so before we'd even put it on the market, so it wasn't like we were discriminating with any other tenants. He was our only person. And we said, okay, when this goes empty, we're going to try to get him in there. And we just couldn't get the job done. And this was in Fairfield County, not Franklin, but we just, the staff, they didn't show up. We couldn't, it was just a great big hassle to where finally all of our applications ran out. And now that's been several years ago, and I'm sure things have changed since then. And I'm not adverse to even relooking at it. But at this point, one of the things that I've noticed is as soon as you have an empty unit, you've got you have 100 people with cash in their hot little hand ready to take it. So it's really hard to get a landlord to not take those and to take the time to get onto Section 8.
Yeah. Here's another random filling question. Do you paint between every tenant or no?
All of my units are the exact same color, the exact same paint, brand, color, sheen, and everything. It's all exactly the same. And my handyman even has a couple of gallons of that at his house. So if I call him, he doesn't have to come to my house to pick it up. Even he can just get it out of his basement and go straight to the unit. But the good point there is that oftentimes we can touch up, even if it's quite a big touch-up job, and not have to paint the entire unit. So yeah, so we do touch up in between every unit or paint. Okay, Tammy Teben says we have a unit that's Section 8 approved in Fairfield County. It was easy to get approved, and they came out for our inspection in less than a week. It's been a good experience so far, and this is her first year. And I know Tammy personally, and we were chatting about that the other night. So she had a very good experience in Fairfield County. But again, hers has just been in the last year, and mine's been maybe 4 years ago, where and maybe it was just all staffing at that time, because it seemed to be more of a staffing issue than a law issue for us. All right, any other questions, comments?
I'm good. I'm filled with more knowledge now.
Yeah. Now, for long-term rentals, again, I recommend you try to get everything as automated as possible, and that just really makes your life a lot easier. So Inago is free to the landlord, and it's a $2 fee a month to the tenant to pay their rent through Inago if they use their bank account. And if I have a tenant that says, oh, I don't want anybody dipping in or out of my bank account, then I just recommend that they open a whole separate bank account that they just use for their rent and use that account number with Inago. And that seems to make them feel better, because then for many of us that bank online, we know that we can just scoot money from one account to another right there online, and they can just scoot their rent over there, and then Inago takes the money out of that account instead of out of their main account, because sometimes that is the concern. And so it is free to the landlord, and it just eliminates a lot of your rent collecting. If you have very many units, that's the biggest hassle every month, is that rent collecting. And people being late, and then they pay the rent late, but they don't pay the late fees. And so now you're thinking, okay, I got my rent. Do I really want to now, try to hold their feet to the fire to get the late fees, or am I going to let it go? And tenants have learned a long time ago that most landlords, if they don't have a system, just let it go, because it's hard to then go back and say, hey, I want that late fee. And because they're like, well, I paid it on time. The fact that you didn't get it on time, So it's one of those he said, she said, and it's just a hassle. And Inago eliminates all of that, because Inago takes care of it. One of the features of Inago is that your tenant can pay right up until midnight the day that their rent is due, and it counts it. So they're not considered late. Even if you don't get it, like say it's a Saturday night at midnight is the first. If they pay it at 11:59 on that Saturday night, it'll still show that they paid on time, even if you don't get it until Monday or Tuesday. But it shows in your account that it's pending. So as a landlord, you see that they've paid it. So it's a win-win, because now the money is there. It's just waiting to go through the clearinghouse. And so it's just really a sweet deal. If folks are not on one of those, either Inago or Cozy, Buildium does have a fee. It's for a little bit maybe bigger portfolio than what I have. Is maybe for somebody that might have 100 units. There is a fee for Buildium, but to my knowledge, there's no fee for Cozy, and I know there's no fee for Inago to the landlord. And it has done for long-term rentals what my Cloud Bed Channel Manager has done for my short-term rentals. So I have the same kind of a software program for my short-term rentals that manages all those online channels. And so automate as much as you can. And that's going to make your life so much easier as you build your portfolio. All right, this has been great. We've been on an hour. I really appreciate Christy being on with us, and Adam being on with us, and Kyle, and all of our attendees. So thank you so much. We see that Adrian has tapped in. We still have Angie. Ontario, am I saying your name correctly? And then we have Jonathan and Tammy, and probably David somewhere with Tammy there. So thank you so much. You can connect with me at kathybinner.com. And he said, yes, I am saying his name correctly. And if you go to kathybinner.com, just scroll down the homepage, you'll see all the free meetups. Tap in there to get dates, times, Zoom codes. And if you scroll on down that homepage, you'll see the calendar. And it has all the connections there in the calendar as well. Adam put his contact information there in the chat. Kyle's put his there. I am actually recording this, and the recording is also going to be there in the website. So again, go to kathybinner.com, scroll down to the Happy House Hunters free meetup, and you can find all of our replays there and all of our other information. We have a mastermind as well. And inside our mastermind is a resource section and all of these forms that you need. It'll have how to create a Craigslist ad. It'll have how to set up a second phone line. It'll have a checklist walkthrough that you can do with your tenants. It'll have a move-in list. It'll have a move-out list. All of that is in our resource section as well. And then we have all of our contractors that our members have referred are also listed there. So not only if you need a contractor or a plumber or an HVAC person or a roofing person or whatever, not only can you go there to get that information, but you can see who referred them. So you can actually call up the member and say, hey, what kind of experience did you have with this guy before I promised him this great big job and all this money? Because again, that's one of the big complaints that we hear a lot with landlords, is trying to find some good quality contractors out there. So we're building that list as well. So anyway, kathybinner.com is where you'll find all of that. And I'm looking at the chat again. We've got Christie's connect information. We've got Kyle's. We've got Adam's. Mine is just my name, kathybinner.com. And it looks like we've got everything there. And all of these contacts will also be under the recording. So if you guys want to connect with Christy or Adam, you can, or Kyle, you can do that as well by going to the recording, the replay. Okay, I think that's it. I think we've covered a lot of territory tonight, and I appreciate you guys being on. So we will see everyone later, and thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.
Thanks, Kathy.